All right, as we were discussing in the last segment, there's a new variant of COVID. It's I've named it the election variant. It just, so timely. Just popped up in time for masks, for new vaccines. I'm sure it's going to be shutdowns, as we were talking about. And I'm sure voting boxes. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's just so handy. Well, joining me now to talk about this and much more, Congressman Andy Harris, a member of the GOP Doctors Caucus, the House Freedom Caucus, and the Appropriations Committee. He represents the 1st Congressional District of Maryland. Dr. Harris, welcome back to the program.
Good to be with you, Tony.
All right. But before I get into this election variant of COVID, the latest variant, Maryland, they're actually public schools there reinstating COVID mask requirements. This is crazy. Did we not learn anything from the last pandemic?
You're absolutely right. There's no question about that. Yeah, Montgomery County, one of the counties that's suburban Washington, D.C., go figure, part of it inside the Beltway, has reinstituted mask mandates. And it's crazy because, again, we learned a lot from the last pandemic. And one of the things we learned was that children actually, unless you're immunocompromised or otherwise really unhealthy, they aren't affected that much by COVID. And they lose social learning. They lose a lot of things by wearing masks. We should have learned, shame on those administrators.
I mean, when we look at it, I was just talking with Dr. Bhattacharya about this and about the mask, about the vaccines mandates, all of this stuff that we saw last time. We see the government moving toward the same thing. Should we be concerned that this could be used to manipulate the outcome of the election?
Oh, there's no question we should be concerned because the science just doesn't back up any of this right now. Again, we learned a lot from the pandemic, and everything we learned points to the fact that we way overdid it last time. And we should question any time they try to bring back mandates, bring back booster shots. Jill Biden, despite having booster shots, got infected. I mean, the bottom line is we learned a lot. Shame on us if we let this happen again.
I am with you 100%. Let me switch gears here very quickly before we run out of time. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has indicated the House is likely to pass a continuing resolution. We're not going to get the appropriations bills through, but there are Republicans who have already expressed opposition to this. And the conservatives are saying, look, we're not going to continue business as usual. What do you think is going to be the outcome here?
Well, Tony, I hope the outcome is that we attach some very meaningful policy change. If we're going to continue for a day the Pelosi, Schumer, Biden budget, which is what a continuing resolution would do, if we're going to continue it for even a day, we should get significant policy concessions, close the border, de-weaponize the Department of Justice, things like that. We have to get something in return for spending, the way overspending and the priorities that are in that Pelosi, Schumer, Biden budget that we would be extending.
How can Republicans justify continuing a budget that led to the largest deficit ever in a single year when we were not at war or under a national emergency? I mean, we're going to see a $2 trillion deficit. How can Republicans support that?
Tony, it's mind-boggling. I certainly don't support it. It is our greatest threat right now is the fact that we have a president who said he was cutting the deficit, and then he doubled it this year to over $2 trillion. That's an incredible amount of money. It will bankrupt us. It will hurt our seniors. It'll result in higher inflation. It'll result in even worse economic situation. We have to put a stop to that reckless spending.
All right, Dr. Harris, what do our listeners and viewers need to do?
They need to contact their members of Congress and tell them, look, do not extend the spending unless you get serious concessions. And when you go to deal with next year's budget, we have to make reasonable, rational cuts to that budget to restore our fiscal sanity in this country. This $2 trillion, again, is just mind-boggling. No one would ever have imagined it, as you say, not in a time of war, not in a time of pandemic. To have a $2 trillion deficit is mind-boggling.
It is, and it'll just continue if we don't stop it now. Dr. Andy Harris, always great to see you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today.